Hi, folks. We're going to be doing early Greek philosophy. And if you turn with me to Ecclesiastes, um, and from time to time, we'll be looking at the history of philosophy. Um, so let's go to the book of Ecclesiastes. The book of Ecclesiastes, and we read chapter 1, book of Ecclesiastes. It says, the words of the preacher of the son of David, king in Jerusalem, vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity, all is vanity. What profit of a man of all his labour which he taketh under the sun? One generation passeth, another generation cometh, but the earth abideth for ever. The sun also riseth, and the sun goeth down, and hasteneth to his place where he rose, and the wind goeth towards the south, and turneth about unto the north. It whirleth about continually, and the wind returneth again according to the circus. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. Unto the place from whence the rivers come, thither they return again. All things are full of labour. Man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. The thing that hath been is that which shall be, and that which is done, that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. And so there's nothing new under the sun. Why are we studying philosophy? One of the reasons is nothing new under the sun. The ideas that we see today were already back there. So if we study those ideas back then, we can have a better picture of what's going on now. But also I'm using the book, The Consequences of Ideas by R.C. Sproul. And I'm going to go through his book. So that's the book that I'm using. And it's not going to be like high level college stuff. It's just going to be simple stuff. And I'm going to go through the history of philosophy over a few weeks. And we're going to look at various topics about that. Why study philosophy? The summer of 1959, this date marked the end of my sophomore year in college, the tail end of a decade of happy days. The beloved Ike still occupied the Oval Office, and the New York Yankees still dominated Major League Baseball, and the turbulent decades of the 60s were still a year away. My biggest concern was summer employment, and many friends who were engineering students had found lucrative summer jobs that paid well above the minimum wage. My prospects were bleak. I was a philosophy major. I did not find in the newspaper a single want and calling for philosophers. My only real option was a job for unskilled labor paying the minimum wage. Even at that, I was delighted to be offered work in the maintenance department of a hospital. When the foreman heard I was a philosophy major, he handed me a broom and said, "Here, you can think all you want while you're leaning on the broom." My co-worker enjoyed this. Among other responsibilities, I was to sweep the hospital's driveway and parking area. During my first week on the job, I was reaching the end of my sweeping territory. My zone ended where the main hospital driveway intersected the parking lot of a nurse home. I noticed another man sweeping the adjacent parking lot, and he greeted me, and we exchanged names and pleasantries. When I told him I was a college student, he asked what I was studying, and when I said philosophy, his face brightened and his eyes lit up. He fired a barrage of questions at me, inquiring about Descartes, Plato, Hegel, Kant, Kierkegaard, and others, and I was astonished at this man's knowledge. He obviously knew far more about philosophy than I did. I thought it bizarre that an adult whose chief occupation is to sweep away driveways be so erudite in the abstract field of philosophy. The whole conversation seemed amazing to me. I had to ask him how he knew so much about philosophy. His story was heart-wrenching. My new friend was from Germany. He had his PhD in philosophy and had been a professor of philosophy in Berlin. When Adolf Hitler came to power, the Nazis were not content to find a final solution for Jews and Gypsies. They also sought to eliminate intellectuals whose ideas were at odds with the values of the Third Reich. My friend was removed from his position, and when he spoke out against the Nazis, his wife and all but one of his children were arrested and executed. He escaped from Germany with his young daughter. When I asked why he was no longer teaching, he said that teaching philosophy had destroyed the lives of his loved ones and ruined his own. With tears in his eyes, he said he now lived only for his daughter. When I heard this man's story, I was 20 years old, and to me, the World War II was a dim memory. To a 20-year-old, 14 years seemed like an eternity, but to my German friend, who was in his mid-50s, the war years seemed like yesterday. His memory of the past was by no means dim. I mused on something else that morning, which is why I am recounting the tale here. I was pushing a broom because I lived in a culture that sees little value in philosophy and gives scant esteem to those who pursue it. My friend was pushing a broom, on the other hand, because he came from a culture that gave great weight to philosophy. But his family was destroyed because Hitler understood that ideas are dangerous. Hitler so feared the consequences of my friend's ideas that he did everything possible to eliminate him and his ideas. As you read this book, you probably are not outside reading by sunlight or inside reading by candlelight. More likely you are reading in a room illuminated by artificial light. Where did that light come from? You probably got to where you are right now by automobile. Where did your car come from? There's probably no outhouse behind your kitchen. Your place of residence probably has running water and indoor plumbing. Where did it come from? I ask about these things that were virtually unknown just a century ago, but that we now consider essential elements of everyday living. These practical things are there because someone first thought about them, perhaps like leaning on a broom before they were invented or brought into existence. The idea preceded the product, which is how it usually works. Not all ideas issue in a tangible form. Some ideas are harebrained, yet even a dreamer's fanciful ideas often become honed into sharp concepts. So whether you like it or not, ideas have consequences. And if you were oblivious to the ideas that have been in the history of the world, you're failing to see that these ideas have impacted the way people's minds shape today. So the more we understand these ideas of the past, we can understand people's mindsets today and be able to minister to them the word of God. As Sproul says, philosophy forces us to think foundationally. By foundationally, I mean first principles or basic truths. Most ideas that shape our lives are accepted, or at least initially, somewhat uncritically. We do not create a world or an environment from scratch and then live in it. Rather, we step into a world and culture that already exists and we learn to interact with it. For example, few people today debate the virtues of graduate or progressive income tax, in which one group pays not only more money but also a higher percentage of their income. How unlike the tithe, God's flat tax. Rarely does anyone challenge the justness of such a scheme because it has been in force for so long. It is an accepted reality when enacted. However, it was the focus of fierce controversy. Nor do we find much deep discussion about political or legal theory, such as marked by the Enlightenment, that's a period of philosophy. Then when the structure of monarchy was giving way to new forms of government, people focused on foundational theory. But today, except perhaps during impeachment trials, we rarely hear discussion of the difference between a republic and a democracy, nor do we hear loud controversies about the foundation for law. Our country's constitution was established more than 200 years ago. This idea has already been implemented. Today, we merely tweak it with new legislation. But the point is, these foundational ideas of our society have been thrashed out over centuries of philosophical debate. And if you don't know the history of these ideas, you don't really understand what's going on in your present day and what's going on in people's minds. And you don't have the knowledge and the skills to be able to share the gospel even more effectively, because you've not been willing to learn the foundations of the basic questions of life and how Christianity answers it and how philosophers have answered it. Okay. The first philosophers, the origin of Western philosophy, are rooted in the ancient Aegean world. A sharp distinction between science and philosophy was unknown to thinkers of that day. The word science in its etymology simply means knowledge. The term philosophy derived from love of wisdom. As ancient man sought to understand himself and the world around him, knowledge and wisdom were interrelated ideas. He was concerned about the nature of things. So it's interesting, in the ancient world, knowledge and wisdom were never separated. They were seen as together. And when you think of the Bible, it teaches a lot about wisdom. It's not good just having scientific knowledge if you haven't got wisdom. Philosophy was born in the ancient quest for the ultimate reality, the reality that transcends the proximate and commonplace and defines and explains the data of everything experienced. Three burdens dominated the thinking of the original philosophers. First, the quest for monarchy. Second, the quest for unity in the midst of diversity. And the third, the quest for the cosmos over chaos. Though these quests may be distinguished at one level, at the different level, all three involve the search for a metaphysical answer to the physical world. The philosophers wanted to know what gave purpose to it all. It's interesting, philosophy and atheism and agnosticism today does not want to know what is the purpose of it all. So really, there's a weakness in the intellectual times that we live in, because the ancients wanted to know what makes all this come together. What is meant here by monarchy may be understood by the brief analysis of the word of the original meaning. The term monarchy is made up of a prefix and a root. The prefix mono means one singular. The root, which is more significant, is arche, which means chief beginning or root. It is often used as a prefix in English as archbishops, etc. Here, arch means chief ruler. An archangel is a chief ruling angel, as an archbishop a chief of a ruling bishop. The later connotation of monarch as a political figure rests on the idea of one chief ruler. In the ancient quest for monarchy, the chief of it all, philosophers sought the chief of ruling substance, or arche, which all things are made or from which they exist. It was the search for the supreme essence or substance of things, a quest for the ultimate stuff of the real world. They wanted to know, what is the ultimate reality of all this stuff? Arche, monarchy, the chief thing. One of the most vexing problems encountered by the ancient thinkers, a problem that remains vexing today, was that of unity and diversity, the one and the many. It was a matter of discovering sense amid vastly different manifestations of reality. So there is one universe, but many parts. What does this all mean? The ancient philosophers were thinking this through and questioning it. Whereas today, a lot of people, this is not a big deal. They're not really interested in what it all accounts to. They're more just interested in what they can have today. They're shopping, they're eating, they're drinking. Today we speak often, somewhat glibly, of the universe. The term universe is something of a mongrel in which the word unity and diversity, the one and many, are jammed together to join a single word. Institutions of higher learning are often called universities because these are the various elements of the universe are studied. The so-called analytical method of the Enlightenment reflected this ancient quest as it sought the logic of the facts. That is, it sought to deduce laws or universals from the raw data of the particulars. It used the scientific method of learning that combines the tools of induction, observing and collecting data, and deduction, drawing logical inferences and conclusions from the data. The logic was that which gave sense and coherence or unity to the diversity. In his famous book, Cosmos, drawn from the television series of the same name, Carl Sagan begins by affirming that the world is cosmos, not chaos. Cosmos is orderly, chaos is not. Chaos is the arch enemy of science. If reality is ultimately chaotic, science itself becomes a manifest impossibility. So the ancient Greeks, they felt that there was something more orderly behind the universe, and they wanted to know what it was. And they come up with different theories and ideas. And even some scholars in modern times, like Carl Sagan, they can't accept that everything came by chance. They've deep down they know that this just doesn't make sense. Perhaps you have heard of chaos physics. This name suggests a kind of commitment to chaos, but the opposite is the case. Chaos physics probes elements of apparent chaos in order to discover the patterns of order that lurk beneath the surface. These physicists study such things as dynamics of fluid motion, the topography of sea coasts, and the structure of snowflakes and the pattern of wind currents that influence weather. In some respects, modern chaos theory recapitulates in a more technical and sophisticated manner the pursuit of the cosmos by ancient philosophers. I'll stop there if anybody wants to come on and ask a question or some thoughts. There is a link there. Thales of Miletus. Thales of Miletus. When asked about the ultimate stuff of which humans are composed, we may answer that boys are made of frogs and snails and puppy dogs' tails, while girls are made of sugar and spice and everything nice. This children's ditty may amuse, but as a scientific analysis of the real difference between sexes, it obviously does not suffice. Thales of Miletus. When we look at Thales' answer to the question of ultimate reality, we may conclude that he too was spinning a childish ditty. Thales argued that all is water, everything that is composed of water, and water serves as the unity of the arche of all things. Before dismissing Thales to the land of fairy tales and mythology, however, we must afford him the benefit of a second glance. One Thales is regarded as the father of Western philosophy is that he distanced himself from traditional mythology and poetry. He sought instead a scientific answer to the nature of things. Nor can Thales be dismissed as a primitive blockhead with no eye or brain for real science. Thales can be regarded as a pre-Renaissance man whose diverse achievements are comparable to those of Leonardo da Vinci and the rival those of Archimedes. Thales solved the engineering problems by diverting the flow of a river. He devised a system of measuring the heights of Egyptian pyramids based on the movement of their shadows. He developed techniques of navigating by the stars and created an instrument for measuring distance at sea. But his crowning achievement was his accurate prediction of a solar eclipse that occurred on May 28, 585 BC. So you can mock these ancients, but they were very clever in many, many ways. Although the original writings of Thales have been lost, some of his thought can be reconstructed by way of anecdote told about him by other ancient writers. Their quotations from his writings and their allusions to his ideas, and we do not know the full measure of his argument that water is the ultimate reality. Water has several factors to commend itself as the ultimate reality. First, the great mysteries of ancient and contemporary science are life, motion, and being. The third is the issue of metaphysical essence. Thales noted that all things he observed in the world come in innumerable sizes, shapes, and colors, that they all appear in one of these three possible states: liquid, gas, or solid. To reduce reality to a single element, Thales looked for one that manifested itself in all three states. The obvious choice is water, which appears as a liquid, steam, or ice. From here, it is a short speculative step to consider all liquids as particular forms of water, all gases as particular forms of steam, and all solids as particular form of ice. What about the mystery of life? Thales could easily see that living things are dependent on water. He knew he could not live long without it, and he wanted to grow grass from seed. He knew he had to water the seed. Ancient people linked their survival to the presence of rain and the absence of drought. Finally, Thales faced the problem of motion. How does one explain the origin of motion in the light of our understanding of the law of inertia? That bodies at rest tend to remain at rest unless acted on by outside force. The obvious question is, what set that outside force in motion? The quest for an unmoved mover did not begin with Aristotle. To solve this part of the puzzle, Thales needed an automobile. No, I do not mean a Buick, a car. Thales sought something that was hyalozotic, something that has the capacity for self-motion. He needed something that can move itself without being acted on by something else. And as he observed the flow of rivers and the constant motion of the tides, water again became an enticing candidate. Before dismissing Thales as being all wet for not perceiving the force of gravity, especially exercised by the moon on the ebb and flow of tides, we owe him the benefit of the doubt. Thales was the first philosopher, but by no means the last. He was succeeded by others who sought to correct or refine his theories. The pre-Socratic philosophers can be organized in four distinct camps, depending on their view of nature of ultimate reality: corporal monism, incorporeal monism, corporal pluralism, incorporeal pluralism. These four categories can be reduced to two crucial issues: is ultimate reality physical, corporal, or non-physical, incorporeal? Is ultimate reality one, monism, or more than one, pluralism? So what we learn here is what we learn here is that the Trinity is key for all this. If you think about it, the Trinity is key because we have in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and there is singular and plurality. And these philosophers were trying to understand why is reality one and then multifaceted. One of the things we learn from Thales is he's looking for truth. He's trying to find it, but he can't get ultimately to it by just pure reason. He just can't get to that reality unless God breaks in and gives us special revelation. We will not come to the ultimate reality of what it's all about. Reason is limited. We need revelation. We can also admire his pursuit of truth, and also that he invented many things, and there are people who are clever who are not Christian, and they've invented many, many good things. But what we see right at the beginning of the history of philosophy is man does have a quest to have an ultimate meaning of why am I in the universe? What's the purpose of it? And today we live in a very hedonistic society where it's about being on TikTok, buying a new handbag. It's very me centered. And yet the ancient philosophers, like Thales, they had a bigger agenda. They wanted to know what's the ultimate meaning to it. Hello, God bless you. So we're going to leave it there because I'm quite tired. We're going to continue early Greek philosophy and do another seminar next week. We'll go into it a bit more detail. We're going to look at Pythagoras and other ancient Greek philosophers. We're going to be using the book that I'm using is The Consequence of Ideas by R.C. Sproul. So if has anybody got any questions or any thoughts, please feel free to ask questions or but we're going to leave it there because I'm a bit tired, and what time is it? I want to break at 10. We're going to look at a debate. We're going to look at a debate in the next video. I want to look at a debate review quickly. So yeah, the lesson we learn here is that there are these big philosophical questions. What is the ultimate meaning? Why do we have so many parts to reality? And Christianity believes in the Trinity, and that gives us a foundation to answer many of these big philosophical questions, which we're going to look at over the coming weeks. Get the book, The Consequence of Ideas by R.C. Sproul. So let's see. Yeah, so we're gonna just do. So you can get. Hey, John. John, I've tried to contact you by email, bro. How you doing, John? Keep going, mate. No surrender, brother. So if you want to listen to History of Philosophy, you can go to R.C. Sproul, Consequence of Ideas on Legionnaire Ministries. John, my dear friend John, where have you been, my friend? This is the book. You can get the book on a Christian perspective. Well, we're trying our best, brother. I can't say much online, you know, because I have so many enemies. But we're working on it, bro. We're working on it. You know, you go on my website, africawithoutborders.co.uk. You go on the website here, John. You get my UK number. You get my mobile there. You give me a ring, bro. We can meet up. I'll be coming up to Oldham soon. I've been wanting to come up, do some evangelism there, brother. But keep going, mate. Keep going. So also you want to get the book, The Consequence of Ideas. R.C. Sproul is a Christian theologian. He's died now, but he wrote this book on the history of philosophy. It's very easy reading. If people want to just understand the history of ideas from a Christian point of view, this is the book to get. All right, John. God bless you, mate. So that's the book there. Get the book. All right. So yeah, I'm going to close this stream. I'm going to do about 10-15 minutes on another stream. I'm going to review a debate that happened. And then I'm going to call it a day because I've been Lancaster today, John. Great place doing evangelism there. Really good, bro. All right. God bless you all. Take care. And we'll be doing a little more of Greek philosophy over the coming next few weeks. So Take care and God bless you. See you, John, and see you, Teddy, and see you, anybody else, and God bless you. Take care.